So let's go the best players in the AFC West. So we're going to give you the MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Breakout Player, and the Coach of the division. So let's get right into it. AFC West.
All right, let's go. So as you mentioned, starting with the MVP, I think Patrick Mahomes is the obvious answer here. Now, I do think Herbert has a case, but I think in terms of value, yes, the roster is good, but can anybody have an offensive line and a wide receiver group rebuilt in the past 2 years and still be at the top of the league?
It's really impressive.
I don't think so. I think the most valuable player is Mahomes, right? With him not on that team, are the Chiefs maybe sneaking into the playoffs? Maybe. But they are not a Super Bowl favorite. They are not a dynasty without Patrick Mahomes. He is obviously the best player and the most valuable player in the division.
I mean, working with lesser and lesser talent every year, it seems like. Because, I mean, the cap is going to shrink a little bit with how much room you have.
And to be fair, like his contract goes up, so it's partially his fault, but it's not looked at as his fault because he's still winning.
He's not contributing to losing at all.
No.
And his contract isn't either, which is crazy. And when you can see it, that generally doesn't happen.
No.
The more a quarterback gets paid, the worse and worse everything gets around them. And while that might be kind of true, they're still able to keep some good talent. I mean, you can still have Travis Kelce, which is a huge help. But, I mean, when Mahomes is on the field, they just win. They win. And I said it earlier, they can be down 28, they can be down 35 in the fourth quarter, and somehow they are going to win the football game. It is nuts.
I could agree with that. Offensive Player of the Year, Justin Herbert. Again, you could argue me into him for MVP, but I do think Mahomes is a better quarterback. Justin Herbert, though, fantastic. I mean, he has had the best first 3 years pretty much ever. I mean, statistically speaking, the team success hasn't quite been there, right? The playoff game slipped out of hand a little bit. But from an individual standpoint, Justin Herbert, I mean, the size, the mobility, the accuracy, the maturity,
the toughness.
Right? The toughness, right? Every box you're looking to check in a franchise quarterback, Justin Herbert checks it. I think there's an argument he will be the most productive quarterback in the division this year. I think Mahomes, again, more valuable. I think he's a better quarterback overall. But for example, last year in the Super Bowl, he had under 200 yards passing. Yes, he was efficient, but he wasn't the most productive he's ever been.
Yeah.
I think Herbert will be arguably more productive than Mahomes, so I think Offensive Player of the Year, that's a perfect fit for Herbo.
That's fair. That game where he was injured against the Chiefs and he had
running with a broken rib, throwing with a broken rib.
Yeah, and you could see him in between plays, could barely lift his arm. But then when it came time to throw the football, he could rip it and was extremely accurate and played his ass off all the way through the end of that game, which was, I mean, just, you don't see quarterbacks do that every day. It is just special, and I think he's still coming into his own. I don't even think he's not even hit his peak.
Yeah,
he hasn't hit his stride.
Yeah,
I feel like he's still picking it up, and now, like we've been talking about, you add Kellen Moore into the system. Yeah. What's he going to look like with a really good offensive coordinator?
Probably really good.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
I am too. All right, Defensive Player of the Year. So we were talking about is this guy a breakout player? Or is he just flat Defensive Player of the Year? We went back and forth.
Yeah,
and we realized we picked him for our breakout player last year, and so I think he takes another step forward. Which another step forward for him would be first team All-Pro level, and I think that's Patrick Surtain, the DB from Denver.
I can see it.
I think it's a very real possibility he is a top 2 to 3 corner in the league this year. I think off the top of my head, Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain. I mean, maybe Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey, but I don't think he's
out of his prime. He's fallen.
I think it's Pat Surtain. I think Pat Surtain, and I think he has an argument with Sauce Gardner. I really think he does. I think Patrick Surtain is a fantastic corner, locked down, long, lanky, just yet another Alabama DB who's fantastic. Are we surprised? I mean, Minka, Pat Surtain.
They breed them there, I swear.
Yeah, it's insane. So Patrick Surtain, Defensive Player of the Year, not breakout because I think he kind of broke out last year, kind of proving he is a top 10 DB. I think he takes another step forward, proving he's a top 3 defensive back.
Well, and think about all the value that adds, especially in division with Mahomes and Herbert, right? You're going to have
and Devontae Adams. Now, I'm not saying the Raiders are fantastic, but Devontae Adams is a real threat.
He's a match.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lot of offensive firepower and balls in the air that you're going to be seeing against you every single week, especially in division. 2 times a year from each of these teams.
Yeah, it's 4 times total. It's not good. 4 times total between Herbert and Mahomes. Then, of course, like we mentioned,
the other 2 with Devontae. So that's 6. You got 6 hard matchups.
Yeah, it's not great. Breakout player of the year, Sky Moore. All right, second-year wide receiver in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I'll also shout out Pittsburgh guy. Goes to Western Michigan as a wide receiver. Look, now, breakout because, yes, people have recency bias where, but he caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Okay, well, first of all, it was his only catch. It was his first touchdown catch of the year. Like, and I'm not taking anything away from him. I think he's a really, really good athlete.
Yeah.
But he wasn't all that last year. This year, I think he takes a step forward. I'm not sure if he's going to be their one, but he'll be wildly productive. I think he'll be like 850 yards, 6-7 touchdowns, right? As opposed to, I think he was like 501 touchdown last year, right? But as a return man, he was also really, really impactful. I think he'll keep being impactful on special teams and crank up the offensive side of the football. I mean, they need a number one. Now, he's not the big physical frame of a typical number one. Quick, good route runner, nice hands, hard worker. Right? I think he checks a lot of boxes, except for the height. I think he can get around it. I think he's a breakout player.
Yeah, I think he's really going to come into his own this season, really kind of shine. And Mahomes is always looking for new weapons. I mean, come on.
He makes everybody work. I think that's also working in Sky Moore's favor. It's like, who's throwing you the football? Yeah. The best quarterback on the planet.
Right.
Yeah, Coach of the Year, I think Andy Reid.
This is another one where you just don't play around.
Yeah, just like the MVP and just like whoever's number one in the division, right? Mahomes and the Chiefs, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
I mean, we could try for Sean Payton. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we haven't seen it yet. And you have no idea what it's going to look like. And now, I think it'll end up being really good, but the Andy Reid level of coaching is so far and beyond.
I think he's at the point now where he can keep things out of the playbook for a later date and start setting like whenever you're a play caller and you can set things up like weeks and weeks in advance, right? Like knowing, say for example, we play the Chargers in 2 weeks, and they're pretty, they follow the motion guy all the time, right? They're pretty motion happy, right? If it's man coverage. Which means the guy's running the whole way across the formation, which means Andy Reid's doing a ton of motion the week before. So they're just ready to follow the motion. And he's going to do one of those where motion, psych, we're going back the other way, a little screen pass, gone. You know what I mean? Like, whenever you can start setting up plays as a coordinator, like weeks in advance, that's a different level. It's a different level.
Yeah, and that's the level Andy Reid is on. He's up there with the greats. So now, and that's it. That's all.
MVP Patrick Mahomes, Offensive Player of the Year Justin Herbert, Defensive Player of the Year Pat Surtain, Breakout Sky Moore, and of course Coach of the Year the great Andy Reid, the best coach in football. Don't think it's much of a debate. When we get back though,